Okay, so the topic for today is linear programming, and in linear programming we are going to start with simplex method. Now we are taking up this question today which says maximize z is equal to 4x1 plus 3x2. Now there are two types of cases in linear programming. One is a case of maximization and another is a case of minimization. Whenever the case is of maximization, Z represents profit or contribution. Whenever the case is of minimization, Z represents cost. So today we have taken a case whereby the function is a maximized case. Here on Z is representing profit. Now there are two products of a company. First product denoted by X1, it has a contribution of 4 rupees. Another product represented by X2 has a contribution or profit of rupees 3 per unit. Now what do we have to do today? By using simplex method, we have to solve these two equations in such a manner so that the profit of the firm comes out to be maximum. That means we need to calculate the value of X1 and X2 in such a manner so that the profits of the firm are maximum. That is the basis of simplex method. Now subjected to these are the two constraints, and the last equation is a non-negativity equation. It clearly says that whatever the value of X1 and X2 will be, it should be greater than or equal to 0. It can never be less than 0. So today we will be calculating the values of X1 and X2 in such a manner so that the profits of the firm comes out to be maximum, because we have taken up a case which says maximize Z. Now we start. The first step is removal of these inequality signs by adding slack variable S1 in the first equation and slack variable S2 in the second equation. So in the first equation we will be adding slack variable S1, and in the second equation we will be adding slack variable S2. Had there been three equations, we would have added S3, and if there were four equations, then we would have added S4 in the fourth equation. So first step is removal of these inequality signs by adding slack variable, right? The spelling is S-L-A-C-K, slack variable S1 in the first equation and slack variable S2 in the second equation. Next step is revising of the objective function. This function is the objective function. The objective today is to maximize the profit, right? So revising of the objective function is done by keeping the basic variables, the objective variables same, and we have to show the presence of S1 and S2. So we write in this manner 0S1 and 0S2. This will be our revised function, right? That profit of X1 is 4, the profit of X2 is 3. While slack variable S1 and S2, they were added only to balance the equations. Their profits, their contributions are always equal to 0, right? So the first step was adding up of slack variables in the respective equations to balance the equations, then revising of the main function. Now we have to construct a table. The table's name is Simplex Table. So please take down the format of the Simplex Table. In the first place, we will have contribution per unit. Contribution per unit. Next, we have this column for basic variables. After that, solution values. After solution values, we will have real variables. Now real variables are X1 and X2. After real variables, we will have this column for slack variables, which are S1 and S2. and finally we have this column for ratio. So this is going to be the format of Simplex table. On the top we have Cj. Now remember, Cj represents contribution. Contribution of x1 was 4. Contribution of x2 given in the question is 3. While the contribution of s1 and s2, they are always equal to 0. So we will start filling up this table by taking Cj, where Cj represents the contribution of each variable, right? Next, at the last we'll have this row called Zj and Cj minus Zj. So this is going to be the format of Simplex table which we are going to construct today. And this Cj minus Zj represents net benefit row. This is also called as net evaluation row. Please take down the full form for Cj minus Zj. Cj minus Zj represents net benefit row or net evaluation row. Now please concentrate. Initially the basic variables are always s1 and s2 and their contributions were 0 for s1 and 0 for s2. So we start filling up of this Simplex table by keeping slack variable s1 in the first row and slack variable s2 in the second row. Solution values represents the values on the right hand side. Now please see, the right hand side values are 30 in the first equation and 24 in the second equation. Now just look at the first equation and only the first equation. The coefficient of x1 in the first equation is 2. The coefficient of x2 in this first equation is 1. Similarly, s1 is also having the coefficient as 1, and since s2 is not there, now when s2 is not there, the coefficient will be represented by 0. Similarly, we move on to the second equation. In the second equation, the coefficient of x1 is 1, while the coefficient of x2, it is 2. The coefficient of s1, now s1 is not there, so the coefficient of s1 will be 0 and the coefficient of s2 will be 1. So what we have done, we have just placed the coefficients of these two equations, right? Now the next step is calculation of Zj. So we are going to calculate Zj for each column. How will we calculate it? Please see. For Z1, now this value is representing Z1. We have to multiply the values which are above it by their respective contributions. So 2 multiplied by 0 and 1 multiplied by 0. That will give you 0 only. Right? How we are doing it? Z2, which is representing Z for the second column. Now please see, 1 will be multiplied by the profit which is right in front of it. So 1 multiplied by 0 and 2 multiplied by 0. This is going to give you 0 again. Similarly, Z3. Now Z3, we are going to follow the same procedure. 1 multiplied by 0 and 0 multiplied by 0 will give you 0 only. Finally, 0 multiplied by 0 and 1 multiplied by 0. So all these values initially will be equal to 0 since the profit which are right in front of them are equal to 0. Next, we are going to find out Cj minus Zj. Now please see, on the top we have Cj is 4 and at the bottom the Zj is 0. So when we subtract 4 and 0, we will get the value as 4 only. Similarly, 3 minus 0 will be equal to 3. 0 minus 0 will be 0. and 0 minus 0 will be equal to 0. So this is how we are going to construct the first table. This table is called as initial simplex table. Now you have to take down some formulae which are the base for solving this process further. So please take down the first formula, which is going to be of immense help while we are solving this simplex table. So key concepts, which are to be used in simplex method. Number 1, key column. Now key column will be highest positive value from Cj minus Zj. Highest positive value from Cj minus Zj. Right, now please see, there are 4 values in this row Cj minus Zj, which is the net benefit row. Now what you have just written, highest positive value out of the whole lot, which is the highest positive value, 4. So this column will become your key column. You have to highlight it. This first column, this will be called as key column. Right? Now please take down the next concept. Number 2, ratios. And ratio will be calculated by this formula. Please take down, ratio is equal to solution value divided by corresponding elements in the key column. Solution value divided by corresponding elements in the key column. Corresponding elements in the key column. Now please see, first solution value is 30. Now it has to be divided by the element which is right in front of it, that is 2. So 30 divided by 2
15
will give you 15, and similarly 24 divided by 1, that will give you 24. So that is how we are going to derive the ratios. Ratios, they will be solution values divided by elements which are right in front of them in the key column. So 30 divided by this key column element is 15, and 24 divided by 1 will give you 24. Next, concept number 3. Please take down the next one, key row. Now key row is equal to, key row is the lowest value from the ratios. Lowest value from the ratios. Taken it down. Now lowest value. There are 2 values which are existing in this ratio column, 15 and 24. What is the lowest value? 15. Right? So this row will be marked as key row. So remember, you have to take the lowest value, and it has to be non-negative value. You can never select any negative value, right? So ignoring all the negative values, you have to select the minimum value. That minimum value will be representing the key row, and it has to be highlighted in this manner. So you'll have key row that is equal to 15. Now the element which is lying on the intersection of key row and key column will be termed as key element. So kindly mark this 2 as the key element. The element which is lying in the intersection of key row and key column will be the key element. Will be the key element. Next, number 4. kindly take down the fourth concept. You have taken down it for key column. Next, you took it for ratios, then key row. Now the fourth one is for incoming variable. Incoming variable. Now incoming variable will be the variable existing in the key column. Existing in the key column. Now look at this key column. There are two kinds of elements, constants and variables. All these values are constants. There is a variable represented by x1. Now this x1 will be termed as incoming variable. When we will be constructing that second table, this variable x1 will go in, and in place of that one variable will go out. The variable which will go out will be called as the outgoing variable. So kindly take down the fifth concept. The fifth concept is for outgoing variable. Outgoing variable. Now outgoing variable will be the variable which is existing in the key row. The outgoing variable will be the variable which is existing in the key row. Now look at this key row. There is a variable called slack variable S1. Right? It will be the outgoing variable and it will go out. S1 will go out, and in place of S1, X1 will come in. Now how this will happen? We are going to do it in the second simplex table, but before that, kindly take down the values in this first simplex table, and if any problem, you can always ask it. Right? Kindly take down all the values, then we will proceed. Okay, taken it down?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we are going to construct the second simplex table. Remember, the format of second simplex table will be exactly same. All these columns will be there: contribution, basic variables, solution values, real variables, slack variables, as well as ratio. But we will be replacing these values, and we will be replacing these values by two formulae. So take down formula number or concept number 6. New entry in key row. New entry in key row is equal to key row divided by key element. So new entry in key row will be key row divided by key element. So we'll have to make use of this formula number 6 to replace the values in the key row. Then one more. Please take down this formula also. New entry in other row. Since there are two rows, the first one is the key row and the second one is the row which is other than key row. It has to be replaced by this formula which says old entry minus corresponding replaced number in key row multiplied by element in the key column. So take down this formula also. This formula says new entry in other row, right? Other row which is other than key row. The formula is a big one, but if you concentrate, you'll get it completely. It is old entry minus corresponding replace number in key row multiplied by element, which is existing in the key column. So now we are going to make use of these two formulae to construct the next table, right? How this will be constructed, please see. Now in the second table, S1 will go out. As I have just said, S1 is outgoing variable. So S1 will go out, and in place of S1, you will have a new variable, that is X1. Right? Since X1 was incoming variable, so X1 will come in, and with X1 comes its profit also, that is 4 rupees, which was initially given in the question. So one variable X1 is coming in and S1 is going out, and along with X1 its profit will also be there, that is equal to 1. Now you are not going to make any change in S2. S2 will remain same, and so will be its contribution. Now changes, they will be happening over here. Now please see how changes will happen. This was the key row. So we are going to divide this whole row by key element. Look at this formula which says new entry in key row. It is key row divided by key element. So this all the values of this key row will be divided by this key element 2. Firstly, 30 divided by 2.
15.
That will give you 15. Now 2 divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 will give you 1 only. Next 1 divided by 2. That will be equal to 1 by 2 only. Now let it remain 1 by 2. 1 divided by 2 will give you 1 by 2. And similarly, this 1 also divided by 2 will give you 1 by 2. Finally, 0 divided by 2 will be equal to 0 only. So first of all, we will have to change the key row. And how this key row will be changed? This will be changed with the help of this formula which says key row divided by key element. Right? So take down this row. This was the changing of the row which was earlier key row. And after that we are going to change the next row, that will be row other than key row. Okay, taken it down. Now please see. Now we are going to change the row which is other than key row. And for that we will have to apply this concept number 7. New entry in other row. Now that is old entry. Now all these old entries will be written. How they will be written? Please see. All these values 24, then 1, 2, 0 and 1. These are all the old entries of the row which was not a key row. So we have kept all these values over here. Then there will be a negative sign. And now we will put up all the values which has been recently replaced in that key row. Right? All these new values you will have to keep. They are 15, 1, half, and 0. I repeat, what have we done? Please see, we have placed all the values of the row which was not a key row, 24, 1, 2, 0, 1. After that, the formula says corresponding replaced number in key row. All the values which were replaced in the earlier key row, you are going to place all these values in this formula, and now they will have to be multiplied by element in the key column. Now please see, we are making changes in this row, S2. So the element which was existing right in front of that row, the key column element, that was 1. Right? So all these values, they will have to be multiplied by 1. I repeat, how have we done it? Please look into your first table. We have taken up all the old entries. All the old entries are placed initially. After that, all the values of the key row which were replaced recently, 15, 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 2 and 0. All these values are placed over here and they will have to be multiplied by the key column element. the key column element for the row which we are going to change. The row which we are going to change is represented by S2, and in front of S2 the key column element was 1. So we have to multiply all the values by this key column element. Now after solving it, we will get 24 minus 15, that will be equal to 9. 1 minus 1, that will be equal to 0. 2 minus half, 2 minus half will give you 3 by 2. 0 minus half, now 0 minus half will be equal to minus 1 by 2, and 1 minus 0, 1 minus 0 will be equal to 1 only. So after making all these calculations, we will have to place all these values in our new table, and they will be represented by 9, 0, 3 by 2, minus 1 by 2, and simply 1. So here on we have just replaced both these rows. The earlier one was a key row and the other one was a row which was not a key row. So after placing all these values, now we are going to again calculate the value of Zj. Now this is Z1, Z2, Z3 and Z4. Now please see the calculations of Z1. For Z1, we are going to carry out the same process. We have to take both these elements, right? This is the value which is representing Z1, right? Now what do we have to do? We have to take up both these values and we have to multiply by the profits or the contribution which are right in front of them. So 1 will be multiplied by 4 and 0 multiplied by 0 will give you 4. So the first value will be equal to 4. Next, this is the calculation of Z2. Please see how Z2 will be calculated. 1 by 2 multiplied by 4. Right? 1 by 2 multiplied by 4 plus 3 by 2 multiplied by 0. So half multiplied by 4 will give you 2, because anything multiplied by 0 will give you 0 only. So the next value will be equal to 2. Now this is the value represented by Z3, and we are going to follow the same procedure. For Z3 we have to take up both these values and we have to multiply it by the profits which are right in front of them. So for Z3, 1 by 2 multiplied by 4 and minus 1 by 2, that should be multiplied by 0. Now you know anything multiplied by 0 will give you 0. Half into 4 will give you 2. So the next value will be equal to 2. And finally Z4, 0 multiplied by 4 and 1 multiplied by 0 will give you 0. So the value of Z4 for this fourth column, that will be equal to 0. See, this was the calculation of first column represented by Z1. This is Z2, this is Z3 and this is Z4. So after doing all these workings, we have calculated the value of Zj. After that, we are going to calculate Cj minus Zj. Now please see, Cj minus Zj is 4 minus 4, that will be equal to 0. 3 minus 2, that will be equal to 1. 0 minus 2 will be equal to minus 2, and 0 minus 0 will be equal to 0. So we have calculated the values of Cj minus Zj. Now we will have to take up the concepts which were told to you earlier. Please tell me, in Cj minus Zj, what do we need to take? Highest or lowest? Highest value, right? So from all these values, what is the highest value? 1. Now this will be termed as key column, because you have just understood and you have taken it down that key column is the highest positive value. So the highest positive value is 1. Next is the calculation for ratio. Now see, 15 divided by 1 by 2 will be equal to 30. How you will get it? See, 15 divided by 1 by 2. Now when we are dividing this fraction, this will get reciprocal and the resultant will be equal to 30. Similarly, 9 divided by 3 by 2. So 9 divided by 3 by 2. The same course will take place 9 into 2 by 3. Now that will give you 3 into 2 equals to 6. So we have the two values of ratios. Remember, in ratio what do we need to take? Highest or lowest? In ratios we have to take the lowest. From this Cj minus Zj we have to take the highest value, highest positive value, and from ratios we have to take the lowest value, right? Lowest value is 6. So this row will be represented by key row, right? I repeat, for key column you have to take the highest value, for key row you have to take the lowest value, and remember the element which is lying on the intersection of it, this element 3 by 2 will be called as the key element. It is going to play an important role in this formula number 6, for constructing or replacing the key row. So the element which lies on the intersection of key row and key column will be called as the key element. Two more concepts. S2 will be the outgoing variable since it is the variable of the key row, and the variable which is in the key column x2 will be the incoming variable. Now we are going to construct the next table, table number 3, and the good news is that it is going to be the last table, but in that table S2 will go out. In place of S2, X2 will go in, right? How this will happen, please take it down before we commence table number 3. And take down the format for the third table. The format will remain same, right? All these columns will be there, and the calculations for both these rows will now take place as we are going to do right now. Please see, now we are going to change both these rows. Please pay attention everyone, then you can always construct this table. S2 is going out, right? So S2 was an outgoing variable. In the second table S2 will go out, and in place of S2 X2 will come in. Since X2 was incoming variable, the incoming variable will come inside the next table, and S2 was an outgoing variable, so it has gone. Now when X2 is coming, you will have to bring along its profit also, which is equal to 3. Now we are going to make changes in both these rows, and how you are going to make changes? We are going to apply both these formulae once again to make changes in these two rows. Please pay attention. Formula number 6 is new entry in key row. You are going to apply this formula which says key row divided by key element. Now this was the key row. All these values will be divided by the key element which is 3 by 2. Now see how you are going to make changes. 9 divided by 3 by 2. Now it will get reciprocal, and 3 into 2 will be equal to 6. So the new values which are coming in place of 9 will have 6. Next value 0 divided by 3 by 2 will give you 0 only, because anything divided by 0 will give you 0. Next 3 by 2 divided by itself, 3 by 2 divided by 3 by 2 will give you 1. This will be equal to 1. Next minus 1 by 2 divided by 3 by 2. Now see, minus 1 by 2, 3 by 2 will get reciprocal, 2 will be cancelled by 2, you will have minus 1 by 3. So the next value will be equal to minus 1 by 3, and 1 divided by 3 by 2 Again this will get reciprocal and the resultant will be equal to 2 by 3. So we have just replaced this row which was earlier the key row. Always you are going to replace key row initially, and all these values, they will be written down in the next table. Kindly take down all these values before we commence this complicated row, which is the row other than key row. Right? Okay, now we start the calculations for this row which was not a key row. Now what does this formula say? New entry in other row is old entry. So now all these old entries, they were 15, then 1, half, and 0. So first of all, we have to give all these old entries. Now we'll have to subtract the corresponding replaced number in key row. Now all these values which have been replaced recently, they are going to be there in this bracket, which are 6, 0, 1, minus 1 by 3 and 2 by 3. I repeat, what have we done? Old row minus new row. Right? This will sound very, very simple. Old row minus new row. All the old entries, we have taken them down. Now we have just put all these values which have been replaced recently. So all these values were 6, 0, 1, minus 1 by 3 and 2 by 3. Now we have to multiply all these values by a common key column element. Now we are changing this row which is x1. Right? Now for x1 we have to take the element which is lying in front of it as far as the key column is concerned. Right? The formula says you have to multiply by the key column element. Now we are changing this row, so the element which is existing in this row as far as the key column is concerned is 1 by 2. So we have to multiply all the values by this element, that is 1 by 2. Right? I repeat, what have we done? Please see the shortcut. We have to take all the old entries in just single shot. Then we have to place all the new values. So this is old row minus new row, and they have to be multiplied by a common key column element, and the common key column element is 1 by 2. Now we have to solve it. That is simple maths. Cancelling this out will give you 3 and 15 minus 3 will give you 12. Remember, anything multiplied by 0 will give you 0. So 1 minus 0 will be equal to 1. Now half minus half will be equal to 0. Now please see, minus minus will become plus. So this is 1 by 2 plus 1 by 6. Taking LCM for both these values, we will have 6. Now 2 3s are 6, 6 1s are 6. Will give you 4 upon 6. Yeah, you can always take this down as 2 by 3. And the last one, this 2 will be cancelled by this 2. You will have in the numerator side 1, and on the denominator side 3. Minus sign will be there. Now we have to replace all these values, and the new values will be 12, 1, 0, this 2 by 3 and minus 1 by 3. So all these values will be the values which will be existing in that row which was not a key row. So we have changed both these rows. One was a key row. Key row has to be changed by this formula which says key row upon key element, and the other row which is not a key row. For that, old row minus new row multiplied by key column element which is existing in that particular row. Okay, next the calculation for Zj. Now for Zj we will have to multiply 1 by 4 and 0 by 3. See the working notes for Z1, 1 multiplied by 4 and 0 multiplied by 3, that will be equal to 4. Z2, 0 multiplied by 4 and 1 multiplied by 3. That will be equal to 3 only. Next, Z3. 2 by 3 multiplied by 4. Now see, 2 by 3 multiplied by 4 plus minus 1 by 3 multiplied by 3. Now how this will be solved? See, 2 fours are 8 upon 3 plus minus will give you minus 3 by 3. That will be equal to 5 by 3. So on this side you will have the value as 5 by 3 and Z4 minus 1 by 3 into 4 and 2 by 3 into 3. So you will have minus 4 by 3 and 2 3s are 6 by 3, right, will give you simply 2 by 3. So we have the values of Zj. Now you have to show all these working notes represented by Z1, that is Z for the first column, Z2 for the second one, Z3 for the third one, and Z4 for the last one, fourth one. Now this is Cj minus Zj. So 4 minus 4 will be equal to 0. 3 minus 3 will also be equal to 0, right? Next, 0 minus 5 by 3 will be equal to minus 5 by 3 and 0 minus 2 by 3 will be equal to minus 2 by 3. Now since all the values in this row Cj minus Zj are 0 or negative, our process ends over here because we cannot select any key column. Since you were told that key column is always, the highest positive value from Cj minus Zj. Now since all the values are either 0 or negative, the whole process ends over here. Now we just need to give the final solutions. And how you will give the final solutions? The value which is lying right in front of x1 is the solution value for x1. So we can say in our conclusion part, that is x1 is equal to 12 and the value which is right in front of x2 will be equal to 6. x1 is 12 and x2 is 6. Now we have to place these values in our prime function, the objective function. Just tell me the objective function which was told to you in the earlier, initially, that was maximize z is 4x1
plus 3x2
plus 3x2. Now we need to put the values of x1 and x2 in this objective function. So 4 into 12 plus 3 into 6 will give us 48 plus 18. That will be equal to rupees 66. That will be the final answer. So please take down all these values and then write down the conclusion in the statement form. This was in numerical form, and now take down the values in the statement, take down the conclusion in the statement form. Please write it down. In order to attain the maximum profit level of rupees 66, the firm should produce 12 units of x1. X1 was the first product. So the firm should produce 12 units of x1 and 6 units of x2 and 6 units of x2. This is the simplex method. Clear?
Yes.
Okay.